My guest tonight, actor, filmmaker, magician, and my friend from way back, Cameron Francis. Cameron, it's good to see you.
Fred, it is great to see you. Thank you so much for allowing me to do this. And am I your first guest for this?
Your first guest. This is the very first show. I thought,
man,
right out the gate. I hope we're pushing all the right buttons here. I think we are.
Yeah, that is so cool.
Well, thank you for being here. I'm going to flatter you, embarrass you a little bit with the resume right off the bat so everyone can get to know you a little bit. You've been an Actors Equity member for 20 years. You've acted on theaters in New York, including off-Broadway, Washington, D.C., Orlando, among others. You've appeared in Hollywood films such as Never Back Down. You've been directed by famous directors like Kevin Smith. We'll get to him in a moment. You're a magician who's performed in the U.S. and throughout Europe. You're a voiceover actor. You're a screenwriter. You're a filmmaker. You're a working artist who, just like me, we've worked to turn this passion into a living.
Yeah.
To say the least. You've done a lot. I want to start, though, with the audition process.
Okay.
That's apt because that's where we met.
Yes.
How long ago was that? That was 2000?
That was I want to say it was 2005.
I think that's about right.
Because I started with Melanie Hurt in like late 2004.
The Hurt Agency was your
The Hurt Agency, right? Which is no longer, sadly, no longer around. Melanie, good for her. She retired. Great. Yeah, so I started with her. And then the first thing I did there kind of out of the gate was like this industrial thing. And then I feel like By Owner was either my second or third, like kind of like bigger thing that I got. And yeah.
It was my first job working in commercials. And it's funny, I was just talking to my friend Gordon Meyer, who directed those commercials, who's directed, I don't know how many commercials, hundreds, I don't know, a lot. And he says, I have no recollection, says Gordon, of those commercials. So, but I remember it well because we met. I was behind the camera. You were obviously in front of the camera. And whenever Hollywood turns the lens on itself and shows that process, the actors are always the tortured souls.
Yeah.
Forced to dance for their dinner. And the guys on this side of the camera, we're the heartless bastards.
Right.
Doing the torturing. So what do you think about the process? I hope it's not that way for everybody all the time, but what do you think about the audition?
No, it's funny. Actually, it's funny. I was just thinking that the good old days when we actually went in person to audition for the initial audition. We actually had to drive out to wherever it was. It seems so long ago. Yeah. I don't really mind it. It's fine. It's just, it's like anything. It's like, they always say in acting, the job is auditioning. Right. And so, some days you're just like, I really don't want to go to this thing today. I really don't want to. It's not that we don't want the job. It's just that we're human. Sometimes we don't feel like driving 2 hours. But no, overall, I like it. The only bad experiences I've had auditioning are when I'm auditioning for people who are rude, basically, or aren't nice people. But you were very friendly. I vaguely remember the audition for By Owner. Because did you now? No. When I auditioned, that was definitely on tape, right? But then filming.
It was this stuff for you kids at home. We shot that commercial on film. On 16 millimeter film, which is what agencies would have been using at that time.
Right.
Video wasn't then what it would soon become.
Right.
Is it different? Is it different auditioning commercials, movies, theater? Is one medium better suited to the actor, or is it tough all the way around?
It really depends on the project. I find commercial auditioning to be because usually commercials are you're selling something. So what a lot of people want you to do is, it isn't necessarily like naturalistic real life kind of stuff all the time, right? Like sometimes it's kind of strange and you have to react to things that you would never react to in real life, or you have to put a smile on your face and smile all the way through where probably you wouldn't do that in real life. So they're
written by ad writers. So yeah.
So it's a little more abstract, I think, is the only way I can say it, is that I find that commercial auditions tend to be, not counterintuitive, but just sort of, you have to know, it helps immensely. The more information you get from the casting director about what they want, it helps you immensely, because if you don't know, it can be very frustrating. As you do something like, yeah, we'll try this with this, and it's like, well, wait a minute, what are you going for here? So I always find it helpful when I get as much information as possible. In terms of like, I'm sorry, yeah.
What's the balance between what you just said, finding out what they're looking for, versus you get a sense of that, injecting your own ideas?
Yeah. So I mean, when I say that, I don't mean I want it spoon fed to me, like, tell me what to do for each thing. I just want to have like the tone, and a good casting director will say, that was great, but this time, just like, do it like this, like with this attitude, or like, really you're more frustrated by this or whatever. So you go, got it. And then you can inject your own, whatever you bring to it, into it. And that's the whole thing, right? It's about, I mean, that's what acting's all about, is bringing your own perspective into whatever, you're trying to do. So, yeah. Now, in terms of film and TV, it tends to be a little more, I mean, again, it depends what you're auditioning for, but for the most part, a lot of it's very like, right, this is a scene, here's your given circumstances, and now do it, like, very natural. It tends to be very naturalistic, especially these days. People want stuff really low key and stuff like that for film and TV. So
I can say, having conducted countless commercial audition sessions, is that there's a certain consistency with what I say to every person, because to make it fair, or to make it honest, everyone should get the same shot.
Right.
Right. I personally like invention.
Yeah.
Especially, I'll admit this, even if you don't get the part, but you do something really interesting, I'll probably steal it. And so you'll be watching a commercial that maybe you didn't get and say, well, I did it just like that.
Right. And you're absolutely, and that's the other thing. I mean, and I've learned that over the years, because when I first started, I didn't know what the hell I was doing. I was just, auditioning, but I realized, I was like, I tend to, do better when I add my own flavor, my own special sauce to the audition, whatever that is, and whatever, happens, whatever comes out organically in the moment, even if it's not on the page, it usually, it's like, you can see, I mean, I can see it in your eyes, or whoever I'm reading for, you're like, oh, that seemed to like hit them a certain way. So that's always cool when that happens.
I do remember this about you with that commercial, the buy owner commercial, and we can actually cue it up. I can, let's do it. Dare we try? Let's try to push some
buttons.
It,
man. Yeah.
Yeah. We've got the technology. I've got to push my own buttons here, but when
yeah.
Joe Rogan doesn't have to push his, but
yeah, I'm not going to push your buttons, man. I'm just not going to do it. I'm just going to go with the flow.
Let's see here.
Yeah. It's a fun spot.
What I remember, and we'll scroll down. I'll try to talk and operate the board at the same time here. Sure. What I remember is that you did something, you did the part, you did what everybody asked for, you did your own, and then you made a gesture, and it was funny. It was way over the top for television.
Right.
I mean, it was PG-13 rated at least, but you did it, and it made everyone at the agency laugh.
Yeah, there we go.
So something, I mean, and it was well within what the character might have done.
Yeah.
So even though it would never make it into the spot, it did imprint you. And so maybe a lesson here is, hey, even if you don't get the part, there's something that someone might remember next time. Oh, that guy, he's funny. I have a part for him. So here I am on your YouTube page here. I was looking for, where might I find
my commercial reel?
Yeah.
You know what? My acting website might have it. It's definitely on my acting website. If you go to,
well, I'll cue that up in the background here when you get rolling.
Sure.
And we'll
Sure. You know what I remember about that shoot, which is really funny, is that, we were just trying to figure out when we were actually doing it, how sort of quote unquote drunk should I appear? And so at one point, because the line is, I think I called my brother-in-law the famous defense attorney. And I think I said the flamous defense attorney. And everybody loved that, but they were like, yeah, but it might be a little too weird. I just remember the crew, everyone laughed. Everyone enjoyed that joke, but I think it was maybe a little over the top for that particular spot.
They were by owner commercials. They were written by my friend Tom Vanderclip, who has been a huge mentor to me. I'm buttering up because eventually I'd like hitting him up because eventually I'd like him to be on this show. He's done everything in the creative world in the advertising industry. And so they were funny, but they required acting ability. Yeah. You couldn't be a clown. And the reason why I think you got the part, and maybe it's some of that stuff you made up on the spot, was because you could play it for laughs without dominating and just making it silly. And it worked. It was what I was looking for.
Yeah, that was such an interesting especially for one of my first commercials, it was such an interesting thing because there was that sort of delicate balance between way over the top. You know, you don't want to go way over the top, but you don't want to be so subtle that it doesn't read either. So it was this kind of like weird balancing act. And, you know, I watch it out and I'm actually like, yeah, it was good. You know, I think I pulled it off all right. You know, I mean, I'm my own worst critic, so I kind of cringe at everything I do, but you know, I thought I did all right there. I thought it was pretty funny.
And certainly you've gone on, you've gotten a lot of parts here. One of them I want to talk about, just kind of moving up in the world a little bit, is you were cast in the movie Never Back Down. 2008, so it was a few years later. And I remember talking with you when you got that. I was over the moon because I know it's a big deal. Even if there are no small parts.
Right.
Not a movie like this. So how did you get that role? Never Back Down. Is it fair to say was it kind of a martial arts movie? I want to say it's a tougher, more hip, violent version of Karate Kid.
Yes, and it was one of the. It was an MMA kind of a movie. What's funny about it is that now I get. I've heard from people who are like, yeah, I love that movie when I was younger, because I mean it came out 2008 at this point, and they're like, it was one of the first MMA. It was like one of my favorite movies. It was one of the first MMA movies, and I'm like, oh, so like, I mean, I don't know if it, you know, it's not like cult, but like, there's definitely people that really like that movie, and I think that's really cool to be a part of that. But how I got it was just, I mean, it was just another audition. I think I went. It was funny though, because I went into, I think was it Mark Mullen who cast that one? And anyway, I went in for it, and they asked us to wear scrubs for the audition. I didn't have any. So I went to a Walmart right before, and the only thing they had were like extra large scrubs, and it swam all over me, but I wore it anyway. And I went in there with these gigantic scrubs, and the scene was actually written quite differently for the audition. It was actually a lot more involved. There were parents involved, all kinds of things. And I was the ER doctor. And so I did it. And here's what's really funny about it. I did it, and they kept like giving me adjustments, and I did the adjustments, and I was like, I guess I'm giving her what I didn't know. And I walked out there and I thought, that wasn't that great. I'm definitely not getting this, because it was just, I just felt like I was floundering. I felt like it was just okay, you know. And just then a few weeks later, I found out it was a few weeks later, I found out I booked it. No callback or anything, just, you know.
It wasn't a small movie. I mean, according to IMDb, $20 million budget.
$20 million budget.
Not exactly lightweight there. No. It made box office.
It did.
So I'm sure it's done more because it's a cable favorite.
Hopefully I've got the residuals to prove that. Yeah.
Well, you deserve it.
I still get residuals.
Good thing we're not in it for the money.
Yeah, right? Exactly. No, I mean, it's not, I mean, honestly, it's very little money, but it's just cool to see that, like, it still plays on cable a lot overseas. It's very popular on, like, I don't know, Swedish television or something. Like, I get these little checks here and there for it. But what was cool about it is it was my first SAG like speaking role in a film. Like, I was, you know, I had been a not SAG extra, but an extra in a SAG film way long time ago before that. But that was this was actually my first SAG role. And the cool thing is too, is in that scene with me, it's Evan Peters, who is now like gone on to do really cool stuff, including, you know, a lot of Marvel stuff, and Amber Heard, who of course is Johnny Depp's ex, and has done Aquaman. So basically, I've worked with two titans of the comic book movie world. I got to be in a scene with them when they were not well known.
Is that scene on your YouTube? We should play that one for.
It's in my reel. Yeah, it's on my. I think you were starting to before we.
Let's see. So if I go to acting. Okay, let's do this.
So It was fun.
Yeah. We know now that action type movies do play well overseas because they don't rely on understanding the nuance of American culture. They just know, okay, that's the guy who's getting bullied and he's got to beat up that guy. All right, let's see if we can add this here. All right. Yeah. So Cameron Francis is acting real.
Yeah, that's it. It's getting real. Acting real. I'm just acting real in this thing. That's all. That's
here we go. Okay.
There we go. Yeah, you can bag it up there.
There we got here. All right.
Go.
This is kind of like, are we dating ourselves by, you remember the show Mystery Science Theater 3000?
I love Mystery Science Theater 3000. One of my all-time favorite shows.
Yeah. Well, kids, there was a show where all it was a bunch of guys sitting in small screens, watching a big screen, cracking over the movie the whole time. And that's probably what we can do right here.
And, you know, they've done new ones on Netflix. I don't know if you've seen them, but there's new episodes on Netflix. And it's good.
They remade The Karate Kid. They remade Red Dawn. Should they have? I don't know. Probably not.
They did.
I haven't seen it.
It's good.
I don't get out much. Let's take a look at this here.
Sure.
Fractured ribs, 6 stitches inside his lip, and a broken nose. That must have been one hell of a fall. You're going to be fine. We'll have to keep you here overnight for observation.
And that's it. Like maybe 20 seconds of screen time, you know, maybe. But it was a big deal to me, man. It was cool, you know.
It's a big deal. Look, I know the movie well enough to know when it comes on cable, I'm like, oh, wait a minute, Cameron's part's coming up.
It's when poor Evan Peters gets the, you know, stuff beaten out of him, and that's right after that. That's when I come on. So yeah, man, it was cool. And this next scene that was directed by Tiako Waititi. I'm going to say his name wrong. I'm going to butcher it. Tiako Waititi, is that how you say his name? So it was an episode of The In-Betweeners. And this is before What We Do in the Shadows, or like, you know, obviously, but way before Thor or any of that. And he just happened to be directing this episode that I was in of this TV show. And I didn't know who he was at the time. He just seemed like a cool dude, you know, had an accent. I didn't know anything about him. But years later, when I looked up who directed the episode, I found out that it was him. And I was like, oh my God, like you know, that's amazing. I got to work with this guy and I didn't even know it at the time. You know?
I'm going to set this up and say that this actually is, to me, vintage Cameron Francis, because if you overplay this, or if you go the wrong direction, the scene probably isn't going to hold its moment and its integrity that it has, and then let's watch.
Yeah.
It too much.
I don't think he'll be allowed in.
Are you serious? What, because he doesn't look like the rest of us?
No, because we don't allow flip-flops or jeans.
You guys got a protest? Cool.
Yeah.
So we headed to the golf course, where the promise of even more embarrassment.
So what's funny about that, you were saying that about how that was played, that scene is cut from like, I don't know how many takes. I mean, we did so many different takes where I did it so many different ways. And literally what they did was they just cobbled it together. Because I remember seeing it and being like, oh, wait, that was from a different take. And, oh, that angle was from a much different take. And they just put it together. So that performance was created out of editing. Like, I feel like, you know, because sometimes I was super snooty and other times I was just a little snooty. And they had me do it all, run the gamut for that one. So that was a really interesting scene.
I think it was the proper amount of snoot.
I think so too. I think the way they did it was great. It was just shocking when I saw, because I knew instantly, I'm like, oh, this is from these. That was different, and that I did that differently on that take and all that stuff. So it's very cool.
You see that though? You might have a memory of the way you played it, and you see the finished thing, no matter what it might have been.
Yeah.
And I suppose you might look at it differently now because you're a filmmaker as well. You'd say, well, gee, I'm going to cut that a little bit differently. Me looking at that, I say, well, I would have given Cameron a close-up, because whenever I've worked with you, that's what I do. Like, all right, I need this moment. You get a few frames, just register this notion that you're used to this kind of reaction.
Yeah.
Like, not overwhelmed by what this kid just said to you.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, maybe. Yeah, I would have given myself a close-up too. Yeah, why not? Fred, I realized something is that I think you and I was trying to think of how many times. I think it was 4 spots that I worked with you on.
Yeah.
And the one that I almost forgot about was that one. It was like called like Gorilla something.
Gorilla Trades. Yeah.
Gorilla Trades. And so I remember you called me and I remember you were like, I think you just called me personally for this one. And you said, listen, this isn't a principal role.
Yeah.
But we really need some people to like jump up and down like gorillas for this. And so I didn't get like the principal pay, but because, you know, you're awesome and I like working with you. I was like, yeah, you know what? I'll do this. This sounds fun.
we couldn't find enough gorillas in Tampa. We had
yeah. I just remember I was at a table.
The spot there was the story as a guy is moving through his life and just over his shoulder, just out of his sight, people are jumping up and down, having just made a trade on this stock trading platform called Gorilla Trades, and they're excited, and that's their way of celebrating. And we did call you, and you were the guy we would call in when we needed some acting. You can feel good about that. Like, I need someone to play the dad. He's going to have a moment here. Yeah, that's what television commercials are. They're 26-second films. Exactly. And you don't have a lot of time, 26 seconds, because most of them are 30 seconds and you got to cut the logo. Of course. So often I need it in one shot, and I need someone who can give me that variation enough to where when I'm in the editing room, I'm like, all right, I got something here to where this human moment, and that's what it is, a human moment. That and the other one of my favorites of all time is the one with the tux and tying the tie. That was a great one, so we got I need a helper at some point who can kind of be in the background as this is coming up in real time and just find all this, and we've got it ready to go. It'll take me 3 minutes and we'll lose our audience. Now I want to move on because you're in the new Kevin Smith movie. Is that right? Kilroy was here.
I'm sorry, say again.
Kilroy was here. Is that the name of it?
Kilroy was here, which who knows when that's coming out, because I think it got a lot of buzz over the summer because he was going to sell it as an NFT, and whoever bought it had to distribute it. And it was like the first Hollywood film to be sold as an NFT.
I don't know if that's a gimmick or if it's brilliant. It sounds interesting. Yeah, it sounds interesting.
I was sort of like, cool, because we're getting a lot of attention. It was in all the trades and everything. It was like got a lot of attention for them. But I'm like, is anyone going to wind up seeing this thing? Because I want that scene for my reel. Because I'll tell you that scene in that movie is probably the first like substantial scene I've had in a movie where I'm not like a cop or a doctor or just some guy. I mean, my character has a name. It's one scene, but it's a really good scene. Yeah. So I'm really hoping it comes out because I really want to see it.
And what was it like? Did you get to work with Kevin Smith, I imagine?
Yeah. So Kevin Smith directed it.
Kevin Smith these days, right? He's lost a lot of weight.
Yeah. So it was after his surgery. And it's funny because there was a small possibility that he wasn't going to direct the scene I was in because his doctor only allowed him to said, listen, you can only work so many days a week. Yeah. And this was like, I think one of the last days of filming. And they were like, well, he might not be there that day to actually direct the scene. They might have somebody else direct it. I think, who did the special effects? Robert Kurtzman? He might have come in to direct it. I can't remember, but that's not what happened. Kevin Smith came in, he did it. And so it was me and with Kevin Smith directing, and Chris Jericho was my scene partner, who's a wrestler. I don't know if you know Chris Jericho, but he's like a professional wrestler. And who was actually great. Like, I didn't know Chris Jericho very well, but he can act, man. He was really good. Like, he was a great scene partner.
You didn't have to carry him like you thought you might have.
No, it's a really intense, really good scene. And it was just cool to be like on set with Kevin Smith, like, and kind of, between takes, I'd chat with him about stuff, and like, he's exactly who you think he'd be and what you want him to be, which is a very cool guy who's laid back, loves movies, has a lot of respect for actors, and is just cool. Like, he's just a nice dude, Yeah. So that was pretty great. Like I said, I hope it does indeed come out. The only regret I have is that Kevin Smith is known for, like, he'll take pictures with everybody. I stupidly left my phone somewhere. It got moved. So right after I finished filming, I'm like, I gotta find my phone because I gotta get a picture of me and Kevin because, like, I really need this picture. So I was like, hey, where's my phone? And they're like, oh, it's over there. I'm like, oh, okay, cool. I'll go over there. And they're like, oh no, they brought it back to base. I'm like, oh, well, what? And so by the time I got my phone, like, he was off doing something else. And I was like, all right.
Yeah. Well, you're old school. The younger generation wouldn't think of coming to work without having their phone on their person.
It was
all
just
about the work.
It was so stupid. Because I was driving a car in this thing, and I should have just put it under my seat in the car. But like, I was like, no, I shouldn't really have it with me. I should just I'll put it I put it aside somewhere on the set, and it just got moved. You know, someone was like, oh, somebody's phone. Let me just move that over here. You know, and so like a dummy, I didn't put it in the car with me, which I should have. But yeah, it was very cool, and I'm hoping. So I'm hoping it comes out because I really want to see that. Because it's like I said, out of everything I've done, it's probably the most substantial thing. So,
and it's this. I was looking at it on IMDb. It's a horror anthology.
Yeah.
Which is, but a Kevin Smith horror film.
Yes.
So I was thinking, okay, well, I've seen Tusk. I mean, that kind of
it's
kind of going in that direction.
Yeah. Yeah. I think this one has a good, from what I've seen from the preview, it's got a good sense of humor about it, but you know, it's got his daughters in it and Jason Mewes is in it. So it's got all the, you know, all those usual people. But yeah, I think he filmed it over like a 2-year period because he had to stop because of his heart thing. And then he came back and finished it later. And so we'll see what happens. Maybe it'll come out after Clerks 3. Who knows? Yeah.
I'm switching gears a little bit. I'm going to talk about your past. I'm going to go back quite a bit because I saw something on your Facebook page. I thought, well, that can't be real, but it is. You went to high school at the Baltimore School for the Arts.
Yeah.
Prestigious Baltimore School for the Arts. And it's not just prestigious because you went there. You had some very famous, or they weren't famous then, but they would soon become very famous.
Yeah.
High school classmates.
Yes. Yes.
One of them, I'll go ahead.
Go ahead. Yeah.
Say these names. One of them was Jada Pinkett.
That's right.
Another was Tupac Shakur. And for you kids out there, I mean, look both of them up. Tupac. He was important. Both of them very, very important.
Yeah.
And then also Josh Charles, right?
Josh Charles did. Yeah. He did. It's funny. I feel like Josh is one that people don't know his name as much, but I'm like, okay, Sports Night, The Good Wife, like, oh yeah, I know. Like they know who he is. Like they've seen him. He, funny thing about that is that because Josh was kind of, even when he was at School for the Arts, was kind of almost out the door before he finished because he did Hairspray, the original movie Hairspray, John Waters.
Yeah.
And
of course, you're in Baltimore, so
right, we were in Baltimore at the time, and then he left. I took over a part for him in this production that we did outside of school. It was sort of attached to the school, but it kind of was its own thing for Baltimore City Life Museums. And Josh went and did Dead Poet Society. So I took over his role for a little bit while he was doing Dead Poet Society. The only thing I remember that was asking, like, what's Robin Williams like? And he's like, he's pretty cool, you know. That's pretty much it. So Josh was the one that was sort of out of the gate, was like, he had connections. And really early on, and I don't know that he even finished School for the Arts. I think he left before he even finished. I mean, he might have finished later, and I don't know about it. But Jada and Tupac were in my class. We were classmates. We did shows together. I considered both of them like good friends. I mean, actually, I was pretty close to Tupac in school. Like we didn't really, I was a kid from the suburbs. I lived like 40 minutes from the school. In the suburbs, very, white middle-class existence. And I bust in every day to downtown Baltimore to go to this school, smack in the middle of the city. And I didn't really have, it wasn't like we hung out a lot after school because I just had to go home. I had to catch my bus, and I didn't really, I did have a car, but it didn't work very well. So I didn't drive to school very much. So I think Tupac and I might have hung out a little bit outside of school, but for the most part, we were just really good friends in school. And I remember...
Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
Oh, no, go ahead. Go ahead.
My question is, well, what was the culture like because obviously you have one classmate in Josh Charles who had gone on to really big things. Yeah. So I would think the tendency would be like, well, wait a minute, that's what we're all supposed to do. And I would think you'd push each other, but what was the culture like working? And what I'm getting at is studying the craft of acting, which, I mean, all this auditioning, I mean, it's not luck. There's some degree of it, but there's a craft to this. You've been working on it for a long time. I'm curious as to what that was like in high school, beginning in high school with what we now know were really famous people or went on to famous careers.
School for the Arts was a very unique school in that half of your day was academics. You had 4 periods of academics, and then the rest of your day was your discipline. We had dance, art, music, theater. So it was it's in this wonderful, it still is, it's in this wonderful building called the Alcazar building, and which used to be a hotel. So it's this really oddly configured building. It's kind of wonderful. It's like a 7-story building. So the upper floors are all academics. The lower floors tend to be your art disciplines. And it's funny because they've actually expanded since then too, which is cool. They bought a building behind the school and kind of built these like walls to go between them. And so like you at one point you kind of like almost like walk into an indoor alleyway to get to the other building, to the other offices and stuff. It's really neat. It's changed a lot since I've been there. Anyway, that's neither here nor there. So it was like a conservatory basically, and you had to audition to get in. And we only had 300 students in the entire school. Like my graduating class was 50 people, and each theater class was about 15 people in each class or less. So it was treated like, it was pretty much like going to college, like a college conservatory for theater. I learned so much there that when I went to college, it was almost like this is kind of like, I got better training in high school, my college was great, but it was just so intense there, because all of our teachers were working artists. They all directed, acted, whatever. So we were being taught by people who were still professionals. And so the culture there was more about the art than it was about the business. So, all of us wanted to do cool stuff, but I, in particular, I was like, I know how to act, but I don't know how to be a professional actor. And for me, it took me a very long time to figure out, and sometimes I still don't think I figured out, but being good at the business side, it's not my inherent thing. I'm that stereotypical actor, it's like, I just want to act, man. I've learned about the business and I'm probably much better now, but it took me a while because I just took it for granted. Like, okay, I'm in school and I'll go out and I'll just start getting jobs. I don't know how that works, but somehow it's going to work.
Ready to take on the world as an artist.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So it was really about and they really were very discouraging about this is not about fame. This is not about money. You're not here to be, this isn't like the movie Fame. We don't care about fame. They're like, we care about you learning this art and we're very serious about it. And that's what we're going to do here. We're going to study and we're going to learn, and there you go. So that's what it was. So it was pretty intense, but it was great.
I wonder, because so much of it now is it's still acting, of course, but it is how big is your following? How much? There's a piece of that too.
There's
yeah.
Well, now in schools, and in the 90s it wasn't like this, but now in schools, in colleges and stuff, they actually do more like business of acting and business of and I don't remember any of that stuff when I was in school. No one ever talked about it. You just kind of go like, okay, you're great, and they kick you out of the nest, and you try to flail your way into a career. So
sure,
yeah.
Well, I can say in my senior year of high school in Miami, just regular old honors English, there were 2 future best-selling authors in that English class. And I was not one of them.
Oh, come on.
But yeah, we should all learn the business of it.
Yeah.
I can say I can't talk about the details of it, but I do have 2 projects that are out there in Hollywood that have been bought, purchased, or being shopped around.
Yeah.
What I can say with certainty, I'm learning the business from the inside, is that it's all about, if I could make friends with a star actor and bring this project, I could go right to the top of the list. Now, there aren't that many of them, but I can say that if you get to a certain point, somehow, some way, you're not auditioning for anybody. In fact, you're picking and choosing.
Yeah.
But what's interesting about it is that to a certain extent, that followership, the number of Instagram followers and so forth, that does become a currency. It's not enough to necessarily make you a star per se.
Right.
There are kids out there with 5 million followers, 10 million followers, 15 million followers, and they're being evaluated. And someone will always ask, I'll say, but can they act? Can they be that? Hollywood isn't quite ready to say, well, just because you have 18 million Instagram followers, you get the part.
Right.
I can say that. And I'm sitting there thinking, well, I'm pretty sure as a marketer, I'm pretty sure I could sell something when someone has 18 million followers, but
yeah,
I'm not calling the shots.
From what I understand now, at least, actors in my position who are just guys who, I mean, people who are doing like sort of, day player work or working a few days on a movie or whatever, they're not as concerned about that kind of stuff for that, maybe some of the major stars, but at my level at this point, I don't think it's going to make or break me getting a role in, a small role in a movie or even a medium-sized role in a movie. But if my career gets on a roll, and you better believe I'm going to start, figuring out how to get more Instagram followers and all that. Cause that's going to make a difference at that point, and, so yeah, I think it's really smart. I mean, I know there are people who literally teach like how to social media, to gain tons of followers and stuff. So, and I probably will, especially with the filmmaking, I probably should be doing that because that's something else I want to get into. So,
well, and I can say to get to those kinds of levels, or even to get to 100,000 followers, chances are those young people have been in something. They've been in a successful show. They've been, they've a lot of these young kids and we've worked with a lot of teens or talked with a lot of up and coming teens. They've been pro actors since they were 8, 9. And they start working out there in Disney and they land their first show and they're somebody by age 11, 12. And of course, a lot of them are so talented. They're musicians and they're putting out music and, they're artistic machines. But they are talented. There's no question about that. But it certainly is a currency. I'm checking here. I'm not sure if I can see if anyone's asking any questions.
Oh,
we're learning a lot this first time out here. We're streaming live to Facebook, LinkedIn, and YouTube. I can't tell.
There's somebody my age 11.
Oh, well, wait a sec. Let's skip that. Well, in any case, if you have a question, if you think we're doing okay, post it up. I want to talk about magic.
Magic. Oh yeah, well, that's an interesting story.
Your acting has taken you across America.
Yeah.
But your magic has taken you across the pond to multiple countries in Europe. Yeah. Is it weird? How did you get into that? How did you
so the story goes like this. So before I lived here, I lived in New York for about 3.5 to almost 4 years. But I was working at the Hippodrome a lot in Gainesville. I would go down to work at the Hippodrome. And I did a lot of shows there. And what happened was when I went down around 2003, I met a woman. She became my wife. And we're no longer married, but we were married for a long time. And the idea was, I was a little hesitant to move to Florida, but my thought was, well, wait a minute. I don't have any on-camera stuff. Like all I had was theater on my resume. I had no on-camera work. So my thought was, and she told me, because she had done a little bit of film work, and she said, well, you could maybe build up your resume down here. I was like, yeah, I could. I could do some commercials. Maybe I'll do some buy owner commercials. That'd be great. And lo and behold, it happened. A dream come true. No, and I was like, build up my resume, and then we'll move back. The idea was we were either going to move to LA or to New York. So then, I'd have a little bit something on my resume to so that it didn't look like I was a total novice. And only because I figured Florida's a smaller market, I'd probably be able to break in a little more easily. Not that it's easy, but a little more easily. So that was the idea. But then something happened called the financial crisis of 2008, which meant my wife had a business and that was tied up. So we couldn't go anywhere, right? Like we were kind of like here in Florida and in Gainesville at the time, even though I was commuting to audition in Orlando and Tampa a lot. So what basically wound up happening is here I am in Gainesville, not a lot going on except a lot of auditioning and just hanging out. And I just, I'd always loved magic. And basically I was looking for something to fulfill me creatively in the in-between times, because I'm a person who I just have to always be creating something, whether it's writing scripts or right now making movies or, and magic suddenly piqued my interest again because I don't know, I could do it in my underwear, sitting at my computer, watching a tutorial and doing card tricks. I'm like, cool, this is like fulfilling a creative need. So it started off as just sort of a little hobby. And then what happened was it turned into, like, I had sent a couple of my tricks to this guy in England who I really admired. And I was like, hey, I think you might like some of this stuff, just to sort of like a reaching out kind of a thing, like just, you know. And he's like, yeah, I really like this. Can I put this out? Can I release this as a marketed trick? And I was like, yeah, cool, man. Yeah, go for it. Like, that's neat. I'd love to have something out there. And then it just kind of snowballed. And I started working with another guy out in England. And he's like, do you want to come out here and film some DVDs, like magic instructional DVDs of your material that you've created? And I'm like, well, why not? Because if there's one thing I know, like, part of me was like, I'm not really ready for that. Like, I just started doing this stuff, you know, again. And I was like, you know what? Why not? Like, what have I got to lose? Yeah, sure. I'll go out to England and film.
But these are original tricks.
Yeah, these are original tricks that I created. I mean, basically, that's where all my creative energy was going because, you know, in between acting jobs, so I was like, I just got to have something to do that's like creative. So I'd make up card tricks and, like, you know, because I was voraciously reading magic books and it just inspired me. And I was like, oh, cool. Yeah. Well, what if I took this idea and kind of did this and, you know, so that's how it snowballed. And then it just turned into something like a side career that at times was, especially after the financial crisis when, and you probably know this, Fred, you know, commercials.
Not a lot of commercials. Yeah, no.
Drying up. Like there was nothing for a couple of years. I had like so few auditions from like 2008 to like 2010. It was like a ghost town. So magic kind of picked up the slack. I was like doing tricks and putting out DVDs and making a little money doing it. Not great money, but good money. It was okay. And getting to travel. So that's how it started, and it kind of continued, and it's been kind of an up and down thing for me. Like sometimes I'll come up with some stuff and release some stuff, but overall, I never had any aspirations to be like a full-time performing magician or anything like that. I just really like the creative process, coming up with stuff and releasing it out to the world. So that's sort of how that got started.
And this is it. You're calling it, it's up close magic.
Close up magic. Yeah.
Magic, excuse me.
So yeah.
I'm on your YouTube channel right now. We should show everyone a card trick, and maybe we'll pick one that is a little bit shorter. Because I'm one of these people. I could go down a rabbit hole. I love getting fooled.
Well, actually, do you want me to?
I don't want to know how it works. But so you were selling not just the performance of the trick, but also how
the secret. So that's sort of the idea.
Your trick. Yeah.
My trick. You know, if you want, I've got one right here. I could literally show you one over Zoom if you want right now.
That would be awesome. Let's
do that. I literally, it's right here.
I love it. A magician never reveals his tricks unless there's a financial crisis, and it's just how you make ends meet to pay the rent. Magic is America.
Most people don't realize that magicians there are magicians who create tricks and sell. It's a marketed, you know, there's a market.
I didn't. Yeah.
So let me just see here. I've got. Okay, we're gonna do this. Why not? It's funny. All right, we're gonna do this right now. Okay. So here's what we're gonna do. I'm gonna tilt this down so you can see.
Right, I was gonna say this is sleight of hand. We can't see anything. So.
No, you're gonna see it. It's right here. Boom.
Okay, fantastic.
I've got this deck of cards. This is gonna be like my imagination deck, if you will. Okay. Now, and let me show you what I mean by that. Is that I've got these cards. So you'll notice the backs look like normal card backs, right? They just look like regular cards, yeah? Backs all look normal. Here's where things get weird, is that the faces are not normal because they're all completely blank. They're just blank faces. Nothing on them. The whole deck is just blank. So Fred, what I want you to do is, once you use your imagination, let's say, we'll start with a suit. Let's say we have 4 suits hanging in the air. And you reach up, it's the clubs, hearts, spades, and diamonds. You reach up, you pluck one out of the air. Which suit do you pluck out of the air?
And I should tell you.
Yeah, just tell me. Yeah, just say it.
I'll pick a diamond.
A diamonds. So diamonds is the suit. Oh, did you actually say did you say the jack of diamonds?
No, I just said the suit. Sorry. Should I say the card?
Diamonds. Okay, great. So we'll use diamonds. That's fine. All right, so we've got diamonds. Now, we're also going to need a value to go with it. So let's say we have a little roulette wheel and it's got ace, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, jack, queen, king on it. We spin it, tick, 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 tick. What does it land on? Which value does it land on?
It landed on the 4 of diamonds.
So 4 of diamonds is the card that you've just created in your mind using your imagination, right? Mm-hmm. Funnily enough, I know exactly where the 4 of diamonds is in this imagination deck, because like I said, it looks like there's nothing here, right? But using my imagination, I can see that right here is the 4 of diamonds. Look at that, the 4 of diamonds in the flesh. Now, I know it's kind of difficult to see that, but Fred, you have an amazing imagination. And what we're going to do right now is put it to the test. I want you to imagine that you were looking at that blank canvas that we just saw. Now, I want you to imagine that on that blank canvas burns the image of the 4 of diamonds, just burns onto that blank canvas in your mind, right? So you can see the red diamonds appearing in the 4. And then I want you to imagine that that card flips over inside this deck. Can you imagine that?
I see it. Yep.
All right, you see it in your mind's eye. Now, I know you have a strong imagination, so let's see how strong it really is. So right here in the cards here, you'll notice there's all these cards, and there's now one face down card. Look at that. One face down card in the deck. Now, wouldn't it be amazing? Wouldn't it be incredible if the one face down card that we just saw was actually the 4 of diamonds?
Well, if there's a recession anytime soon, I think you're just making an audition for your next corporate gig. We can't hire you for the commercial. See, I don't even want to know how it's done. I just want to be tricked over and over again.
Right. So there you go. That's a little something that I came up with. It's a marketed trick that, I said that's being sold on a website and all that stuff.
So how many tricks do you have? How often are you inspired to create one of these?
It's funny. I got a ton. I've got a ton out there. Like I said, I feel
I'm looking at your website. I'm looking at your Google Cameron Francis Magic.
There's a lot.
YouTube Cameron Francis.
Yeah, there's
Magic.
a lot.
There's a lot. There's quite a bit.
So yeah, I mean, there was a run there of of a long time where I was like cranking out a lot of material, and but it's funny because then I realized that I was like, I love doing this, but I really don't want this to be like, I have other things I want to do with my life. So I was like, I gotta focus on these other things I want to do. Like, the filmmaking and stuff, which is what I started doing because I realized I kind of like the technology had reached a point where it's like, why not start making, I got an iPhone. I can actually make a movie now because you can get Filmic Pro and load it on your phone. And suddenly you've got like a little mini cinema camera,
I've enjoyed your movies.
Thanks, man.
A lot of people during the lockdown, I'm sitting here in this room, starved for content. And so you made a movie and I thought, this is okay, cool. Cameron made it and it was good. Yeah. And then like a month later, there was another and then another. And then how many did you make? And what period of time did you do this? You had an amazing creative output. Yeah.
So what I did was what happened was about a couple years ago, I had heard that, Steven Soderbergh had made a movie using an iPhone 7, right? An iPhone 7 using Filmic Pro. He had filmed this movie called Unsane. And I was like, wow, Steven Soderbergh did that? Now, I know other people had made iPhone movies, but I just assumed, not having seen them, and I was like, well, how good can they look, right?
Yeah.
But then, I saw this preview, and I'm like, that actually looked all right. Like, I was like, I'm like, wow, well, what's this all about? And then I learned about the app that he was using, Filmic Pro and everything. And so I was like, I've always wanted to make movies my whole life. That's really what I wanted to do. And I'm like, something, my excuse has always been no money. I don't have the money. I don't know how to do it. I can't get this all together. And I'm like, but man, I've got a MacBook here and, I got an iPhone. Like, why can't I start doing this? So then I started looking into I bought Final Cut Pro, right, for my computer. And I did that in right at the beginning of 2020. I'm like, this year, I'm making a movie. I'm going to make a short film and I'm going to get my friends together and it's going to be great. And then COVID hits. So I'm thinking to myself, okay, but why not try this anyway? Like, why not? Like, I'm just in my apartment by myself. I could still do this, right? So I started to do it. Like, I came up with one idea, then I came up with another one, made a few comedies, and then I started making horror movies. And I think I've done 8 in the last year and a half. I did 8 short films by myself
You're a one-man band, right?
Complete one man. I mean, everything. Like I was filming myself, lighting myself, editing, sound, all of it.
Truly a rebel without a crew.
Rebel. It was the Robert Rodriguez all
yes.
the way. And I spent I don't count the money that I spend on the equipment because that money is just like, well, I'm going to use this. I'm going to reuse this anyway. And honestly, I didn't have to buy that much equipment to do a decent job. There's a lot of very affordable equipment you can buy out there to, for sort of no budget filmmaking. So, yeah, Robert Rodriguez is one of my heroes. Like I'm a huge fan.
In fact, I think anyone who came up kind of with that attitude, of, I can do this. Soderbergh as well, because when did Sex, Lies, and Videotape come out? Which was
89?
Yeah, so that was kind of the original, not necessarily, just kind of cobbled together on whatever budget he could put together, and it was a big hit.
Well, but here's the thing that really got me, because like I have a feature I want to do, and again I wrote it purposely so that it mostly takes place in an apartment, because I'm like, I have an apartment. I can just film in my apartment. When you read about Robert Rodriguez and Kevin Smith, right? So Robert Rodriguez made El Mariachi for $7,000.
Famously for $7,000. Everyone knows that number. Yeah.
Yeah. And Kevin Smith, I think, made Clerks for 16 grand, I believe.
Somewhere I've heard between 16 and 25, and he had to largely sell his comic book collection.
Yeah. And credit cards and stuff.
Yeah. Yeah.
And for those guys, what did they spend their money on? They spent their money on film stock and, getting it developed and editing. Although I think Robert Rodriguez, I want to say did he edit on video? I want to say he actually edited on video. Like he had it transferred, then edited on video anyway.
Right.
Whereas Kevin Smith used one of those old, editing bays. And I'm like, okay, so if those guys made those movies for that much money, and what they spent their money on was just like the film to film them, I got endless amounts of film on my phone, or, I don't have to spend my money on any of that. So I'm like, why can't I make a movie? And for even less, maybe, I have lots of talented friends who want to pitch in. So I'm like, why not? So, I mean, on these shorts that I made, I would sometimes I would sometimes in a joking way on, Facebook, look, I had a receipt for $5 that I spent on some white makeup at Party City or something, and a thing of fake blood. And I'd say, this is the budget for my new movie, $5.
Yeah. Run that by accounting.
Yeah, really. And this thing's going to be epic. Right. So yeah, I just started and I mean, the only other thing I spend money on is I do buy music. Like I buy stock music on Audio Jungle just to have some, something that sounds decent. But that's cheap too. I mean, you can buy stuff for a few dollars, on stock music sites.
Sure.
So it just was something that, and it's funny because I feel like the magic, there's a lot of directors who are also magicians. Orson Welles, famously, he was a great magician, actually.
Literally a magician, not just a magician behind the camera.
No. Orson Welles was he loved magic. He did stage illusions. He did close up. George Méliès, one of the first filmmakers ever, started as a stage magician. And I think there's a reason why people who like magic tend to also like movies, is because movies, it's like the ultimate magic trick, isn't it? It's making an absolute total illusion. It's selling an illusion, and I think that, in a way, I've always been drawn to magic because I love the idea of creating these sort of, fantastic things that aren't real, but, it elicits some kind of emotional response. And I think that now that I'm doing more of this movie making thing, I'm like, this is where it's at. I'm like, this is what I've always wanted to do, is make movies. And, so, yeah.
Only could go back in time to say 1995. With that iPhone and that laptop, you could just gun past everybody.
Man, I know, great, because part of the thing is that part of the reason I didn't do it before was because I had video cameras and stuff, but I was always like, man, this looks like crap though. It's a freaking video camera. I don't want to make some on a video. I want to make it look good, And so but with something like Filmic Pro, where you can do things like set your ISO and you know, your shutter speed and all that, and actually make it look proper. It's like, it looks pretty darn good.
And that's what Apple's selling now with essentially
Yeah.
the newest iPhone. They're kind of
Yeah.
showing you can make a Hollywood movie.
I mean, yeah, I have a 12. I have a 12 Pro Max from last year. I did the last movie I did was filmed with this thing, and it looks really good. I mean, I feel like I can see the difference between this and the 10.
Yeah.
But I did recently invest in a Lumix S5 digital camera, which, oh, it looks so good. I'm so happy. I can't wait to actually do something with it.
Well, and having gone through this from 2005 until essentially now, back when even professionally, digital was making tremendous strides, and everyone had to talk about the camera. And there were $100,000 cameras, and there were $4,000 cameras, and what could you make with the 4? So all the way through it, there was a spell there where you couldn't make a film, and it's almost as if it couldn't be judged before people knew, well, what did you shoot that on?
Yeah.
How much magic did you put into that? And a lot of the fun for us and doing this professionally at Grown Man Brand and studying this and helped learning the ins and outs from professionals who had worked in film and understood optics and just the nature of, if in a perfect world, here's what you're going for. How can you make the tools do that?
Yeah.
Which, you know, you've kind of got that. The stuff is good now. You know, there was a time when I bet you now most of the stuff we're looking at, even at the highest end on Netflix, Amazon, and so forth, is digital. It's just cheaper, and the workflows are so much faster, and no one can tell the difference. I mean, not so maybe just 10 years ago. I mean, maybe the biggest filmmakers like I wouldn't be surprised if Clint Eastwood is still shooting on film, and I don't want him to change. Don't worry about digital now. But
I know Christopher Nolan will shoot on nothing but film.
And you know what? He's earned that right.
I mean, it's, you know, absolutely. But I mean, like for someone like me who, you know, it's like, I just basically want something that looks good that, you know, I can do inexpensively. So digital it is.
All right. We got it. Now that we're talking about all this, we've got to give me a moment here, because I've got to pull a real blast from the past. And someone did ask, like, well, how long are you going to be on tonight? And I said, I think we're going to talk until we're just sick of each other. But we can't wrap it up. We've been going about an hour, but we can't leave until we show this here. Just bear with me here.
Is this what I think it is, friend?
Oh yeah. So I'm going to set this up a little bit. Back in about probably 2006, I'm going to say it was 2006. I got together the best, most talented people who had come through the commercial auditions and said, okay, we're going to make a movie. And it's going to be a movie about making a movie, because that's where I was in my life at this time. And I had decided Cameron was going to be the lead. You're going to be the lead because you're the guy. So I had all the best actors who had come through, and I'd pieced together this script. And it was a scene that we made to kind of prove the concept, but it was enough for us to all look at it and say, yeah, let's keep going. Let's give this. That's the way I remember it. So let us play this. Now, I will say this was shot on video in probably 2006, and it was compressed in either a pre-YouTube world or an early YouTube world. So if you remember back then, you couldn't just make a 200 megabyte anything. You had to compress it down. And so it might be a little jiggly, might be a little moving around, but I think you'll still get the idea here.
Excellent.
Let's add this up and take a look.
So how's the script coming?
Script. It's it's a piece of shit. It's 162 pages of spineless characters talking about nothing. It's long, boring, and pointless. It reads like a high school civics textbook. I'm a hack. I've got no business writing screenplays.
You were an award-winning copywriter. You wrote 2 commercials that won Clios.
Yeah, at least when I was in advertising, I could be a get-free hack. Like those are the good old days. I'd be lucky if I could get a job writing greeting cards right now.
Jesus, Smiley, get over it. So you're in a slump and the script sucks, but cheer up. It gets worse. We got bigger problems.
Like what?
Well, No casting agents have called us back, so there's no cast. Stan dropped out to do a real movie, so there's no camera or film. Our location scout disappeared, so there's no locations. And even if there were, the film commissioner won't give us the time of day, so there's no permits. But none of that really matters since our only investor, pulled the plug, so there's no budget.
Wait a minute. Did you say no film? You mean we have to shoot this on video?
And then we turn this into a trailer.
Yeah, it's Cameron Francis at his most Michael J. Fox-ish. Because that little thing was like, you have to shoot this on video. It's like it sounds like, Doc, you have a time machine, have a DeLorean. Like it totally has that vibe to it.
It's not who you steal it from; it's where you take it to.
Yeah, exactly, man. Yeah, stuff from the back.
How many times I went to the close-up, or at least the reaction of you twice, when someone else, when Nevada, the great Nevada Caldwell, is speaking, because it's right there when she says we have no film, and you register like, wait a minute, these other no budget, no script, we can come around on that.
Yeah,
we don't have film. And the thing about that joke is that it would have played well then, because commercials were still most commercials, certainly at elitist advertising, they would have been on film very much. Movies were obviously on film, and digital looked the way it did, or it wasn't even necessarily digital then. Video looked the way it did.
Yeah. And
so what I knew is what you just said a moment ago. We could never afford the film. We couldn't even afford, if we're going to make this movie, Cigar City Amateurs, the crew to make it look good. Right.
Yeah.
So I had to apologize early with this scene. But what I like about it, looking at it back, I haven't looked at this in a long time. The scene kind of captures everything that the movie's about. I realized I wrote it 15 years ago. And at that point in my life, making a movie was the biggest thing I could do in my artistic life. I've since then done that. But then it was this thing that I'd built up that was the most important thing in my life, just like Smiley. And the whole movie, in the script that was Cigar City Amateurs, scene by scene, the dream unravels. And it's not what he expected it to be. And it's just one disaster after another. But it's Nevada, her character, saying, cheer up, it gets worse. This is life. This is it. This is the experience. And I think it's so true. And we were going to make this, and I rallied together the best actors, and some of them were so convinced it was going to get made, they actually put it on their headshots. Because back then, headshots were something you had to think about in advance. Like, okay, my resume. So I called a couple of the actors out on it. Like, I noticed you got this. Like, well, I thought we were going to make it, so I just figured I'd put that on their film credit.
Yeah. I have a rule about that. I never put anything on my resume until I've shot it. So but the day I shoot it, it goes right on IMDb and right on my resume.
The flip side of that is when you actually do make a movie with somebody, and it's on their headshot, and that's great. But eventually they move on to other stuff, and you get pushed down the list. And you're one of those available on request, like you're off, like they have bigger things to highlight. We ended up.
Oh no, go ahead. Sorry.
We ended up. I was all set to do this, and then I aged just enough to where I had just a different story in mind, completely different. It was about a 9-year-old girl, and I made it with Nevada. Yeah, because it was a 9-year-old girl whose parents pass away. Yeah, that's the backstory. She goes and lives with her aunt, and who's Nevada, and they go on this filmic adventure, and they send movies to her parents in heaven through the internet, which I thought was a really cool hook.
That is a cool.
Yeah, I wrote this in 2007. I think we made it in 2008. And the internet, oddly enough, it was new enough then. Or YouTube, content wasn't as easy to put up then as it is now. So it was possible that a kid might think. And there's a nice, wonderful twist. And even when I show it now, there's parts in it where people cry, And because most of the movie is made with the video camera. It's like the Blair Witch Project. The camera is a character in the story. You're off the hook. Like no matter how you light it or how you compose anything, make it, but you're off the hook. Like people will, that it should look that way because the little girl is shooting a movie. And so I guess it stood out because at the time, everyone then was making horror movies. There were a lot of horror movies in the mid 2000s. Some of them were amazing. Yeah. A friend of mine said this back then, horror movies like punk rock. It doesn't necessarily matter how slick or polished or produced it is. If it's got heart, if a horror movie has heart in the right place, the audience will forgive all that. and go with you on that journey. And I think that's true.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of bad punk rock out there. Just
True.
a lot of bad horror movies. But
Yeah.
your stuff, now let's get back to good horror movies, because we could probably show a clip of one of yours. I like it because you figured out how to keep us waiting on the edge of our seat. And is he going to scare us here, or something's going to jump out at us? Which again, I love being thrilled. I want to play dumb and not try to see it coming.
Yeah, I think the one that it's not my favorite, but one of the ones that does that successfully is the one I did with my daughter called Lindsay. I finally convinced my daughter to do. I really wanted her to be in one of these little movies. I'm like, it's just me. I just want someone else in them too. And she's like, I don't want to do it. And I said, how about you get to kill me at the end? She goes, okay, I'll do it. So she, her little, she plays a little ghost and she gets me at the end. That one,
spoiler alert, but I could imagine her trying to rewrite that script. Like, I'll do it, but I have to kill you in the end.
Yeah, really. Yeah. Spoiler alert when you watch it.
Is there can we scrub ahead to, I have it queued up. It's about,
you can
8 minutes long.
Yeah.
Not that we necessarily need to, let's see here.
Whatever it is.
So I don't know if we want to, is there a point of it you want to go to, or do you want to?
It doesn't really matter, man. If you want to go toward if you wanted this scare at the end or whatever.
I already told you the ending. Dad is this one.
Yeah.
Well, let's pick it up right about here. You're playing to your strengths in terms of blocking your own scene here.
It's amazing, like
a classic Cameron Francis close-up, and he's using all that training to register that something is amiss here.
Yes.
And actually, it's been a while since I've seen this, so I might.
Yeah.
The super tall boy bear.
Yep. It's funny. I redid this because I wanted something else there, and I just thought it was funny to like look at the frame, like what the hell happened to that thing?
There we go.
It's a slow burn. That whole thing is a slow burn, but I like a slow burn. I like the, and this one actually had a slightly higher budget than the other ones because my daughter wanted makeup. So I had to buy her a bunch of makeup, and it cost a fortune. I was like, how much? I never knew how much makeup was until we went to CVS and had to buy some.
Probably have to feed her too. And
yeah, I had to feed her. Yeah.
She's not
like, I need makeup. I was like, okay, let's go buy you some makeup.
Non-union. So I'm sure you can overwork her. And
yeah, exactly.
We're in Florida after all. It's a right to work state.
Yeah.
Google Cameron Francis, YouTube Cameron Francis. He's at least 8 videos, countless magic videos out. You're like me. You just go down the rabbit hole and you want to get scared or tricked.
Right.
Dichotomy working.
There you go. Yeah.
Well, it's been fantastic. I've enjoyed this. This is good. If YouTube doesn't cancel us, we might have to do it again.
So now who's your next guest going to be?
I'm hoping there are a few that I hoped watch this. But I got a lot of friends. It's not limited to actors, of course. I have a lot of magicians. You're my only magician friend. I have a lot of musicians. I have a lot of musicians, writer friends, comedians. This will make you feel good. I have them sort of layered in terms of, well, that person would certainly do anything with me. I've known him a long time. This person would probably appreciate the exposure. This person I got to work up to because they're actually a little famous. They got something going on.
Yeah.
Hopefully folks will come on and have a good time. It's not too much torture talking about yourself. I would hope.
It's excruciating. I hated every minute of it. No, I'm kidding. This is really...
The point of it is, though, and someone asked me, like, why are you doing a podcast? You know, there's so many podcasts. There are. There's the world doesn't need another podcast. I've said this publicly, but the world doesn't need another horror film or another book or another song or another comedy act or another painting. The world has enough art. But here we are making it.
That's right.
We're doing this, and we've got to do it. And most of my favorite pastime is getting with someone that who's been through it like I have, and talking about art and stuff and music and movies. I mean, it's fun for me. So maybe it's fun for other people too. We'll see.
Well, it's great because I feel like, you like it's like we were talking about before, is that, it's like talking to artists who aren't famous is interesting because we are working, but we're still working artists, Absolutely. Right? So we still make a living doing it.
That's it.
And, and I feel like the people don't really hear from people like me. So thank you, Fred. I appreciate the opportunity to come on here.
And I think that's really important, about the importance of, you said it a moment ago, you have to be creative. I think we all sort of, my friend David Audette, who's been a great inspiration for me and a tremendous artist, photographer, writer, just visual artist. He said, it's a sickness, but it's a good sickness to have.
Yeah,
sickness for creativity. And I know we all have it.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. It's essential.
Yeah. Well, I've enjoyed this a bunch.
Me too, man.
I am going to make this available, assuming that the software recorded. I am going to make this available. So stay tuned. It's a little bit of work here. I'm planning on maybe giving the whole thing out on YouTube and with links to it and so forth, but I'll probably cut it up a little bit. And I can say it depends on how much work I can do on, or how much time I can sink into breaking out little snippets. Hopefully there are snippets that'll work. Cameron Francis on getting his daughter into the movie. You had to kill him.
Oh my God. Yeah. Yeah. So. Good stuff, man. Well, thanks again for having me. It's been a treat. It's been fun. It's just been fun, like just talking. I almost forgot, like, people might watch this. I thought we were just having a conversation. So that's the best part of this whole thing is to, and I feel like we hadn't talked in a while before you got in touch with me for this. So this has been great to reconnect.
Yeah, it's been a little bit. You're the same way as me. I've got a daughter. You have a daughter, and
yeah. I mean, you got life.
Life gets in the way.
Are you still living in Tampa, by the way? I just meant to.
Still, actually working in Tampa, living in Riverview. Just
okay.
And been here for a while.
Awesome.
Yeah, it's funny. We were living in the Seminole Heights area of Tampa. That's where our studio is, and that became the very, very hip area of Tampa. Bars and nightlife and just really cool stuff. And my wife and I were just aging out of that. Like, we needed soccer practice. We needed 2 and 3. And so we moved out to the suburbs now and now have that. But
yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, still here and enjoying it. Tampa, maybe somewhere down the road, someone who watched this said, that Cigar City Amateurs is a good idea. So we can be executive producers and they can go through the hard work of making it.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
Well, thank you for being on here, Cameron. It's been a lot of fun.
Thank you. It's wonderful.
Yeah, that's it. I think I just end broadcast. There's no big sign.
Oh, okay.
Enjoy your evening, and we're going to see everybody next time. Thanks a lot.
Awesome, man. All right. See you, man. Thanks so much.
You got it. Peace.
I don't even know what to do.
I had to hit end broadcast, and it's like, are you sure you want to end broadcast? Yeah, I'm sure.
It still says live at the top of my screen.
No, it does, because I have to hit this second button. It's like a little safety trigger. Yeah.